Hi friends, you're watching Real Progressives and my name's Trish Roberts. I'm going to be joined in a little while by Elena Brodskaya from South Florida Vegan Education Group, and Elena has kindly availed some time to just chat about her own personal experiences about veganism and her how she became vegan, and that's what we'll discuss for a little while. But first of all, and then possibly because Keith Berger from South Florida Vegan Education Group, he was going to also appear, but we had a few tech problems with because Keith and Elena have to do it from another location, so we had some tech problems. So unfortunately, Keith may not be able to join us. We might be able to add him in. He might be able to pop down and sit in Elena's seat and also chat a little bit later. But we'll probably might just be Elena and myself. So I just wanted to first of all say that we'll be doing this for the next weekly for the next probably 6 weeks or so. And we've got some guests coming up that I'm really excited about. It's because abolitionist veganism is, as a logical extension of justice, we include humans, of course, non-human and human animals. All forms of oppression are related and interconnected. And so, all forms of discrimination like sexism, racism, heterosexism, ableism, classism, it's all related. And where you have one form of discrimination, you'll have all forms. So that's why, as social justice advocates, which I hope we all are, we all try to. We want justice to be inclusive. We don't want it to be exclusive, and so that means that we need to have the neuroplasticity of mind to be able to incorporate some information. Sorry, what was that? Incorporate new information. Sorry, I've got a little cat that is Anjushri that wants to. Whoops, it's come to visit while we're doing this. Anjushri likes to be in the camera and likes to sit on my lap. So, we have to have the neuroplasticity to be able to accept new information and to consider new information. So that's something that's very important, I think, as we progress in life. If we didn't accept new information, if we didn't consider new information, then we'd be stuck way, way back, in our teens or before. So that's why it's good for us to have an open mind about this issue, veganism. And you will have heard a lot of misinformation and disinformation about this issue. Veganism is not a diet. It's a social justice issue. It's a grassroots, non-violent. It's a non-violent grassroots social justice movement, and so just like any social justice movement, it has to be a morally consistent one, and that means that we, just as we wouldn't be promoting the idea of humane child slavery or humane child, like, if we wouldn't suggest, say, for example, that children should only be beaten twice a week and then the rest of the time, we shouldn't beat them. And that's why abolitionist vegans, as I am, as Elena Brodskaya is, as Keith Berger is, we don't promote the idea of happy animal slavery. We don't promote that. We don't promote the idea of happy animal products. How you hear about happy cows in the fields and all that sort of thing. There's a lot that is wrong with that. So we don't promote single issue campaigns that fetishize one species over another. We don't promote them. We don't promote the idea that that one form of animal exploitation is worse than another. Like we don't promote the idea that fur is worse than leather. They're all products of violence, and so we don't fetishize killing whales over, say, killing chickens, even though there are some groups that do that. In fact, a lot of large animal groups do that. They promote the idea that certain species are more morally important than other species, and therefore, and there's a reason for that, because usually these single issue campaigns bring in donations for those groups. So they do promote single issue campaigns but that fetishizes one species over another, and it also says that one form of torturing and killing animals is worse than another, and this is just not the case. We wouldn't do it if we were promoting. When we promote human social justice issues, we say that any sort of exploitation of humans and any sort of torture and killing of humans is wrong. Well, hopefully we do. So, and the same should apply when we're talking about non-human sentient animals. They are sentient just like we are, and just because they're a different species to us, that doesn't matter. They don't have to be like us to deserve our moral concern, to deserve the right not to be used as a resource, to deserve the right not to be used as property. And society, because we're species, is because we've been indoctrinated right from the word go to believe that these other sentient beings who live on the planet with us are our resources, and so we continue on believing that because it's convenient to do so, and because we can. It's a human supremacist attitude, and that's what our species has been doing right from the beginning, right from the word go. We've been not only otherizing animals and using them and torturing and using them and killing them for our resources, but we've been doing it to humans as well. We've been enslaving humans for thousands of years and objectifying them and then using them as property and thinking that that's okay. And then, of course, as we evolved, hopefully we've realized that using humans this way and treating them as property and enslaving them and killing them is wrong. And of course, human slavery still exists today, but it's not generally not seen as acceptable. And this is what abolitionist vegans are trying to put across to people, that that because non-human animals are sentient, they have a right not to be used as things, as property. So, and just as we are sentient, and their species, just as race, sex or sexual orientation doesn't exclude people from the moral community, species doesn't exclude those sentient beings from the moral community. And that simply means that we don't view non-human animals as things. They belong in the moral community with us. They're members and they were born onto this planet to exist for their own reasons. They're not born onto this planet so that we can use them however we want to. They were born, they're members of this planet, and they deserve to be able to exist for their own purposes and to not be used as things. So, and this includes, the idea that there's nice and sweet ways of using animals. There isn't. All forms of animal exploitation, including the so-called humane use of animals, is very problematic. It involves torture and murder, and it involves killing their children. It involves the reproductive manipulation of those animals. It's an exploitation of motherhood, because that's what dairy is. Dairy is an exploitation of motherhood. Male calves are taken away from their mothers, and they're usually killed at a couple of days old or a day old. They're put on trucks for 24 hours in the blazing heat or the freezing cold. They're crying for their mothers. Their mothers are crying for them for days. and grieving. If you've ever seen a male calf or a female calf being removed from their mother, the distress is tremendous, and that's what the dairy industry is. These products that we think, and eventually the mother is killed. The mother of that calf is killed when she's no longer productive and of any use. And the same in the egg industry. Eggs are products of violence. Male chicks are often thrown into grinders alive, or they're thrown into bins to the suffocate, and just left to die because they're no use to the egg industry. And the so-called free-range eggs, those chicks that come into those free-range facilities, they're all from hatcheries where they grind up male chicks alive, and it's all enslavement. And at a later stage, I'll focus on these particular industries just to show to you that you might think that eggs don't involve killing of animals or torturing or whatever. And that you might think dairy products are harmless too. Well, they're not. And leather, wool is as full of the what goes on in the wool industry. But even if it was, my little cats, that's Arun's come to say hello. Even if even if all these animals were treated wonderfully, and at the time of their death they were sung to sleep, and they were basically stroked until somebody cut their throat. Even if it was a wonderful, if it was possible, which it isn't, but even if it was this fabulous life where they were, sort of given little separate beds and everything, it wouldn't matter because they're sentient, and we don't have the right to use them as resources, and we don't have the right to steal the products of their body. We just don't, so this is something we need to think about, that just because they're another species, just because they're not like us, just because they don't have the same abilities as us, we don't have the same abilities that they do, and that doesn't make us lesser either. We can't live underwater, we can't fly through the air by ourselves, there's a lot of things that we can't do that they can do, and that doesn't make us lesser either. It just makes us different, and we have to stop otherizing humans and non-humans based on difference. It's good that there is so much difference on the planet. It is good that there are other species. It's wonderful that we share this planet with non-human animals. I'm sorry that I have to say non-human as if we're the center and they're other, but it's very difficult sometimes to talk about I can call them other animals, but I'm just trying to sort of promote the idea that we're actually all animals on this planet together. And until we stop using them and seeing them as other and thinking that it's okay for us to use them as property, until we really internalize that, and that's the vegan ethic, that's what veganism is all about, there will never ever be peace on this planet while we're killing 1 trillion land and aquatic animals every year for trivial reasons of mostly palate pleasure, because we don't need to eat, wear, or use animals. We don't need animal products to survive. We can easily meet all our nutritional requirements from plants and other non-animal sources. And that's a fact. And I invite you to watch that documentary. I've posted some images that are from the documentary What the Health, which is it's a film about how the pharmaceutical industries and the cancer industry and the animal agriculture industry are sort of all in cahoots basically, and these cancer industries don't want people to really stop using animal products because there's money to be made. That's the problem when you have health industries that can be that are used for profit, and insurance industries that are profitable. They don't want people to become healthy. And a plant-based diet is completely healthy if it's a balanced plant-based diet, just like any diet. Any diet that is not balanced is going to be problematic. So this is the thing so What the Health actually has some really great information about the problems of consuming animal products. And so, and also, it it shows these links between you know the cancer industry and the diabetic, the diabetes industry, that they don't really want us to think about the fact that animal products are actually contributing greatly to this epidemic of diabetes in the United States in particular, but it's a global thing now. I mean, so I invite you to watch. It's actually on Netflix at the moment. What the Health, and I'll put a link to that in the comment section after this broadcast. And I found it very, very interesting. So I hope that you will check that that documentary out, What the Health, on Netflix, and also check out the companion documentary that that the same producers did earlier, which was Cowspiracy: The Sustainability Secret. The only problem, of course, with this with films like this is they don't really talk about the immorality of using sentient beings as resources. That's something that is sort of left out of these particular, like Cowspiracy and What the Health. They don't talk about, and that's as problematic in a way as if, for example, we were talking about the Iraq War and talking about how, say, we were dropping depleted uranium bombs, which we are, and how that's destroying the environment, but not talking about the fact that we're, killing hundreds of thousands of civilians and also leaving the children of the children in those countries being born greatly deformed due to the uranium depleted bombs. That's the sort of problematic thing that it is, when we talk about, say, just the health aspects of veganism, which there are many, or the environmental benefits of becoming vegan, which are great. I mean, 51% of greenhouse gases are from animal use industry. But these are ancillary benefits of veganism, the health and environmental ancillary benefits. The real reason for veganism, and the real reason, for example, we should stop bombing Muslim majority countries or trying to imperialize various countries and killing their civilians. The reason is because it's wrong to torture and kill human beings. And the same goes with non-human animals. That's why abolitionist vegans talk about veganism in terms of the real focus, the real reason to be vegan is because non-human animals are not our resources. They're sentient, and we don't have the right to torture and kill them for completely trivial reasons of mostly palate pleasure. And so that's why sometimes these films like What the Health and What the Health and Cowspiracy are problematic because they because they only focus on the health reasons or the environmental reasons. So I just wanted to say that about those films, but What the Health is definitely worth watching, and I hope you'll check it out. So really, that was I'm almost finished. I'm going to bring Elena into the room shortly, but I just wanted to explain that, and also I wanted to just quickly tell you that we have some really interesting guests coming up, and so these Friday nights where we do these live streams will also include people who are talking about human social justice issues, and mainly they're anti-imperialist, anti-war, and it's so we'll have some interesting guests, and so I just, like, for example, I just quickly run through some of the guests that are coming up next. Not this Friday, because we're going to skip this Friday since we're doing this Wednesday. That's so that Elena can join us and talk. And then Friday week, I think that's the 30th of June, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. We're going to have Angel Flynn from Gentle World. Gentle World is a vegan intentional community, and she's going to be joining possibly Elena and myself. I don't think we can have any more than 3 guests, unfortunately, on Be Live TV, the actual Be Live app. I think it only allows 3 people at a time. So we might have Elena Vodskaya or Keith Berger. I don't know, they can work that out between themselves. But we'll be talking to Angel Flynn from Gentle World, and she's a wonderful vegan advocate, and she'll be talking a bit about Gentle World and also just about veganism in general. And she writes amazing blog posts. They're really fantastic, and you can find that on gentleworld.org. That's gentleworld.org, and I'll leave a link to that. So that Angel will be joining us on the 30th of June, Friday, at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. And then in July, we're going to have, on the 8th of July, we're going to have Eunice Wong. Eunice Wong is an actor and an author. She's written a companion book to What the Health, and the documentary I just talked about. And Eunice is also just come out of rave reviews about her about this play she was doing in New York City. It was called Morning Becomes Electra. Anyway, Eunice is great, and she's also vegan, and she's just a great person. And so we're going to talk to her, and that's on the 8th. That's on the 7th of July at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. So there's a few other guests coming up. There's Peter Cohen, who's a journalist and an activist. He's going to be on the 15th. Jerry Georgopoulos, he's going to talk about Indigenous issues. He works with Indigenous communities in Western Australia, and he's going to be talking about the tragic rise in Indigenous youth suicides. Just recently, there was somebody who was last year, a young boy who was only 10 years old, killed himself. I mean, this is a rise in Indigenous youth suicides in Western Australia, and it's really, really alarming, and it's an emergency situation. So I'm going to be talking to Jerry Georgopoulos then, and that will be very interesting and also disturbing at the same time. So I invite you to join, and I'll leave a list of these various guests in the coming month. And also we'll have Vanessa Beeley, who is she's on the ground reporter she does a lot of reporting from Syria, and she's a very, very reliable source of what's really going on in Syria. And I invite you to check Vanessa Beeley out, her interview, because she's always very interesting, very informative. She has her finger on the pulse with this issue. Her and Eva Bartlett, they're wonderful, very brave women journalists on the ground in Syria. So I invite you to check that out. And that's going to be, I think, on the 28th of July. So I'll leave all this. And Marcus Dredge is going to be in early August, possibly. He's going to be talking about humans and overpopulation. That's an issue that's very, very rarely ever discussed. And basically, it wouldn't matter if all global warming stopped tomorrow. If we continue to breed as we do, well, it's like having a house and having people in one house not being able to go anywhere and just breeding and breeding. It's unsustainable. So he's going to be talking about that, and we might be joined in that conversation by Dana River, and she'll give her views on that as well. And then we also, on the 18th of August, will be joined by David Swanson, who is a fantastic anti-imperialist, anti-war activist, and he's recently returned from the anti-war coalition conference they had in Virginia, Vermont, just recently. So he'll be giving his insights about the abolition of war, and I'm sure there'll be some other fantastic things that he'll be able to talk about. And we're also going to probably in August sometime be joined by George Galloway, who is an amazing UK parliamentarian who has such vast knowledge about geopolitical issues in relation to the Middle East. He's an amazing person who he was a parliamentarian for 30 years in the Labour Party in the United Kingdom, and he's good friends with Jeremy Corbyn. They've been friends for decades. He's just has the most amazing views, and is just always so eloquent and such a fighter for social justice issues and for the disenfranchised. So George Galloway has kindly accepted my invitation, and he said he'd love to do that. So, and I'm hoping that he will become, if we're very lucky, a regular guest. You'll find him an amazing person to listen to. So these are just some of the guests. There are other people. I won't take up too much more time. I'm sorry I'm sort of taking up time when we could be. I'll introduce Elena shortly. But I just wanted to give you an idea of the kinds of things that we'll be talking about here on this particular time slot that Steve Grumbine has so kindly availed me and Elena and Keith. And so that's something that's going to be, we're going to sort of address veganism, the non-human animal rights and human animal rights. That's what we're going to be doing. And we're going to probably have at least once a month where we're just talking about just non-human animals and veganism. And then the other times, because we're abolitionists and we're inclusive, we're as a logical extension of justice, as I've said, we always consider, human rights and social justice issues related to humans. So that's what we're doing. And it's all equally morally important that we do that, because, as I said, all forms of discrimination, abolitionists recognize that all forms of discrimination are related and cause violence. And where you have one, and that includes speciesism, where you have one, like speciesism, you will have all forms. As the saying goes, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And that's something that we need to consider. So now I'm going to introduce Elena Vodskaya. I'll just bring her in. And Elena, hi Elena.
Hi Trish.
Sorry, that was a
Hello,
long
everyone.
introduction. That was a long introduction. And it's unfortunate that we couldn't bring Keith in, but maybe later on Keith might be able to pop in. Elena, we were just talking earlier about we thought might be good to start off this. You might like to share how you became vegan, what prompted you to become vegan, and that would be great.
Oh, sure. Well, I just want to also say thank you to Steve for allowing us to do this, because obviously without him and his graciousness, we wouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
Going vegan, yes, I went vegan about 10 years ago, in 2007. Prior to that, I was vegetarian, where I started thinking about going vegan. And it was about 2006. I have heard the word vegan many times before, or maybe not so many times before, but just I've heard the word vegan, and I became curious. I certainly didn't know anybody who was vegan. I didn't even know anybody who was vegetarian. To someone before, at work, and she was formerly vegan, and then she went back to eating animals, and she was justifying it for me. And to me, it was all sort of an empty sound, because I wasn't vegetarian. I was nowhere near being vegetarian. But I've heard the word vegan before, and I started looking into it, and I read the meaning of the word, what it's all about, and I thought, that's interesting. I never thought about that. I've never thought about animals as, being exploited and used for us and for our, trivial pleasures. Um, of course, at that time, I didn't think that it was trivial. I didn't think, I just thought that it was interesting. I thought, oh, that's a better way to live, I guess. That's a kinder, uh, more gentler, and more just way to live. And so I started to explore that a little further. And what happened at that time was this internal dialogue that I was having with myself, basically. Um, just classic examples of what I hear now. People say to me like, okay, well, where do we get our protein, and how did we evolve from a hunter-gatherer society? Where do we get animal products, and why do we need them? Do we need them at all? That kind of thing. And I did that for about 2 days, and every time I would come to a conclusion that we really don't need, animals are really not here for us to, what we do to animals is just egregious and wrong, basically. So I came to that conclusion. I had no idea, I watched any videos, so I had no idea what was happening at factory farms. So after that little deliberation, I watched a video, and it was a 15-minute film and on dairy cows, and I just ran out of the room crying. And at that moment, I swore to myself that I would never participate in that. I never wanted to be part of that chain of demand and supply. And I realized that, it was enslavement, and there was something very inherently wrong about that, what we're doing to the animals. Um, so that was, in a nutshell, that's my story about going vegan. I do have to say I didn't go vegan right away, unfortunately. I went vegetarian. I still didn't understand what it meant to be vegan. I didn't understand the difference, actually, the difference between the word vegan and vegetarian. I simply thought that was a shorter version of the word vegetarian. And as we all know, vegetarians still consume dairy and egg products, and they're just vegetarian for their own health. I haven't met a lot of vegetarians who are ethical vegetarians. Um, so I've met a lot of people who are vegetarians for health reasons, just to cut back on whatever, just reduce cholesterol, what have you. And after some time, I really started reading up on it. Somebody really brought my attention to that, and I felt really ashamed that I didn't know that. It's probably my own daftness, but that's the way it is. And I read up on it, and of course, that moment I decided to live vegan. And that was 10 years ago, and I never looked back, and that's the
Oh,
best thing that
excuse
I've ever
me.
done.
Excuse me, Elena. I think Dee Dee is just mentioning that the sound went out. So
Oh
I don't know.
no.
What's that, Dee Dee? Oh, maybe it's just Dee Dee's computer. Um, could I ask the people in the if anybody's watching, if you could possibly leave some comments, sort of let us know. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt, Elena. Dee Dee was just saying she thought that she couldn't hear you, but
Oh, no
so,
problem.
but the comments, I can't see any comments here. Are they saying that they can hear Elena, Dee
Yes,
Dee?
I see the comments, and people
Oh,
can
yes.
hear
So
me.
people can hear. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt, Elena. Sorry.
No problem. No, I was.
I try and make you just the only person in the frame, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem to allow me to do that for some reason. I don't know. I don't. I'd like to just be able to drop out of this frame and let you continue talking. Anyway, so please continue.
Uh, I was just saying how I was. I decided to live vegan after learning about veganism and the difference between vegetarianism and veganism. Uh, so it's been 10 years, and I've never felt better. Of course, it's not about me. It's about the animals. It's about the victims. It is a way of life. It's not a perspective. It's not a lifestyle. It's a moral minimum
Mm.
that we all can do to put our morals in perspective and to live in the best way possible for all of us.
And and so your South Florida Vegan Education Group, Elena, that's you've been doing quite a lot of advocacy in South Florida in the Boca area, and you're really a bit of a lone voice in that area because there's a lot of people, a lot of sort of organizations that are promoting kind of happy animal exploitation and single issue campaigns that fetishize certain animals over others, and certain forms of animal use is seen as worse than others by these organizations. So you're really kind of a bit of a lone voice there, but an important voice. It's very, very important.
I hope so. I mean,
Mhm.
as far as I know, our group is the only one who promotes abolitionist approach to veganism
Mm.
and vegan advocacy. We are the only ones. We've met, I think, a couple of more people who are abolitionists and adhere to that philosophy.
Mm.
Actually, a couple of friends, a couple of vegan friends, have learned more and have gone abolitionist since meeting us, which is great. But yes, what we do is in lieu of leafleting, in lieu of protesting and standing with signs and disrupting events, maybe, or doing all kinds of theatrical things, we set up tables and we talk to people.
Mm.
We talk to people, come up to us, and we talk to them. Of
Mm.
course, we talk to people who only want to be talked to. We are not imposing in any way. We talk in a very peaceful, nonviolent manner. We don't appear as aggressive or impatient or anything like that. We believe that people need to be educated or re-educated about these things, especially
Mm.
the speciesism that's inherent in our society.
Mm.
And so we kind of gradually, try to talk to people. We do a
Mm.
lot of digital, not digital, I don't know if that's the right word, um,
Blogging and
virtual blogging and so on
mm.
and so forth, you know.
Yeah, like Keith has got a great that he's got this great blog, which I hope that I hope the viewers will check out, called Turbulence of Dreaming, and we'll put a link to that in the comments section. So Keith is a very prolific blogger, and it's a difficult thing actually when you're doing abolitionist vegan education. There's a lot to counter with the large animal groups, as I've mentioned in the introduction, put out a lot of they make veganism in many ways optional, and they often conflate it with vegetarianism, and they also fetishize certain species, and they focus on one form of animal use as if that's worse than the others. And speaking of moral compartmentalization, I saw it recently, just yesterday, there was a group of there was in the news, there were people outraged about the fact that there's been dogs being killed in the streets of Bali, and then the dog meat being served up uh, to to customers who were not aware that it's dog meat. And then of course this particular group that is in Australia, a large animal group called Animals Australia, who does not have veganism up front and center. They promote welfare and the happy animal slavery thing. They actually capitalized on that particular story and were saying how outrageous it was that people were being served dog meat in restaurants and they didn't know it was dog meat. And the interesting thing about that is that what is different really about the fact that they've been eating dog meat or say chicken, the flesh of chicken or the flesh of cows, they're all sentient and they all love life just as the dogs that are being sadly shot on the streets. And so it's interesting when people have this compartmentalization, isn't it, Elena, where they freak out at the fact that they're eating the flesh of dogs because they've probably had a personal relationship with a dog, and they know that dogs are sentient and that they love life and that they have these, and often people consider them family members, and yet if they'd had a personal relationship with any of those other animals that are on their plates in their everyday life, they would see that they're no different from the dog that they've had this personal relationship with. So it's an interesting thing if people thought about that for a moment, that they're being so completely freaked out by the fact of eating flesh of animals that they have had some connection to in a personal way in life, and they sort of see that as outrageous and kind of immoral, and yet they don't realize that the other animals that they have on their plates or if they're wearing or whatever have the same sort of they have the same love of life. They have interactions with one another. They love their young. They want to live just as the dog that was on their plates that they're so outraged about. So it's interesting. This compartmentalization comes up so regularly in the media. There was a quokka. I don't know if the viewers are familiar with the quokka. I think that's how you pronounce it. Is a very, very cute marsupial that we have here in Australia, and they are on Rottnest Island, and they're very, very sweet little animals that we fetishize here in Australia, along with we fetishize certain animals that we're also killing them at the same time. But this little quokka was kicked by a tourist on Rottnest Island, and the tourist was fined $4,000 for kicking this quokka. And that's sort of interesting because in our everyday lives, every second, globally we're killing a couple of thousand or more animals every second and torturing them and killing them in slaughterhouses, or they're dying on decks of boats, and that's seen as okay with us. This is the thing about fetishizing and also compartmentalizing. We're okay with that. But we're not okay if a little quokka is kicked by somebody and we happen to think that little quokka is very cute, and also they're a way of getting tourists onto the island because quokkas are interesting looking, and he was charged $4,000 for that. So we have this constant compartmentalization, just as when we're talking about how upset we are when particular species of wildlife. Sorry, Didi? Then there's different species of wildlife are being killed, and usually it's to do with animal agriculture. There's millions, really, isn't there, Elena? Millions are killed every year for for the farmers kill millions of poison trap and kill wildlife every year, millions of them, to quote unquote protect livestock. So a quokka, Didi was saying. A quokka, I'm sorry, I mispronounced that. A quokka. Quokka. Anyway, but farmers, they do the protecting. They say they're protecting livestock, and then they're killing millions and millions of, poisoning and trapping different wildlife. Put that in quotes, to protect livestock. They call it livestock, and that's a very speciesist word. So so it's interesting. We're always, and also the fact that climate change, which we're responsible for too, if we're eating animal products, because 51% of greenhouse gases are from animal agriculture. There's a sixth mass extinction happening right now, due to partly due to the fact that one of the biggest drivers of climate change is animal agriculture. So, there's 200 species going extinct every day, and we're participating in that by eating animal products, and yet a lot of us are wringing our hands and saying, "Oh no, these species are going extinct," because and thinking that it has nothing to do with us. So oftentimes we're just not really living consciously, and we're not taking personal responsibility for the various things that are going on that we're participating in. Anyway, I'm taking up the floor here. So, but was there anything in particular, anything else that you might like to talk about, Elena, or would you like to pop Keith on for a while? We'll have to do a sort of a. I'll have to. We'll have to wait while you swap. But is there anything that you might like to say or?
Well, I just wanted to comment to what you were saying. I was just taking some notes. Um, I guess the case with the dog, that poor unfortunate dog who was killed and served as meat to tourists in Bali. It's akin to going to KFC and ordering a bucket of chicken wings and then finding a chicken head inside that bucket, and thinking, oh my gosh, that's so gross, but guess what you're eating, that's the same. This is the same speciesism, which actually stems from our human supremacy notions, that we're all operating from, and this is what we need to end. This is why we need to tell people, or not tell, but to educate people on that. We're educating people on that it's wrong to oppress people of color. It's wrong to oppress people of different sexual orientation. It is wrong to be ableist. It is wrong to be classist. We should all be inclusive and everything, and egalitarian in all ways, shapes, and forms. But somehow we're omitting animals from that. And speciesism is not okay.
No, and it's so heavily indoctrinated, aren't we, Elena? Like literally right from the word go, we're sort of we're given mixed messages as well, because we're on one hand, parents, many parents are reading these sweet little stories about animals on happy farms, and it's as if they're just living there and nothing's going to happen to them, and nothing is happening to them, and they've got names and everybody's happy, and that we're also anthropomorphizing them and projecting all sorts of traits onto them that they don't have. They're like these conduits for our own sort of personal human sort of stories. And yet on the one hand we're doing that with children, on the other hand we're serving them up these very animals that we're all celebrating and giving names to in these happy animal farms, so-called happy animal farms, and here they are on the plates. And when children realize that, they really, many of them actually freak out and sort of say and get very upset. But we keep telling them, no, eat, that's fine. This is what they're there for. And yet then we're reading them more stories about the happy animals and taking them to films and and showing showing animation.
Yeah. We're all a generation of Charlotte Webbs. We grew up on that. Not myself personally, but I just actually watched it for the first time, and it was amazing to me how everybody in the story, how everybody was just endeared by the pig, and the whole story of how they were trying to save the pig from slaughter, and then just drawing no connection with afterwards, and going for some ribs or a barbecue, having a barbecue in the backyard or something like that.
That's right. I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, yes, you're absolutely right. And one more word about these situations. We talk a lot about factory farming and slaughterhouses, so on and so forth, but there is really no difference where these animals die. Whether they die at the slaughterhouse or a factory farm, with these horrible conditions, or whether they die at a mom and pop farm, little tiny bucolic farm, out in the country. They may have all kinds of grass to feed on. They may have, wonderful conditions, so on and so forth, but they still die.
Mm,
And that's not acceptable. Again, animals are not here for us. They're here for other reasons. And if we don't understand these reasons, that's okay. Let's
mm,
just leave them alone, and we'll learn about animals. There's a
yeah.
wonderful documentary which is available for free on YouTube. It's called The Superior Human with a question mark. And I believe it was done in 2012, so a few years ago. And it's wonderful because it shows um, humans versus animals or vice versa. Uh, when people say things like, oh, do animals compose symphonies or do animals build bridges? Well, guess what? They do. And it's a nice little documentary, a little tongue in cheek, but
Mm,
it explains what animals do and actually certain things that humans cannot do. And a lot of the things we do equally well. And, there's a really nicely presented philosophy about that. Just to be equal. We are equal. We're supposed to be equal.
mm, mm. And I don't know if you've heard of that movie that came out in the beginning of the year, A Dog's Purpose. I haven't seen it, but I did a little video on Faint Signals from Vega about it. That A Dog's Purpose. I read the synopsis, and before I read the synopsis about the film, I won't be going to see it. But before I read the synopsis, I thought, I bet you that the dog's purpose is something to do with us. It'll
Mm.
probably be all about serving us in some way. And sure
Mm.
enough, I read the thing, and it says, that he brings happiness to this particular generation of family, and then something to do with other generations. I don't know, it must have been different. I don't know. I guess this dog had puppies and whatever. I don't know exact story, but it was basically all about the dog bringing happiness to this family, and that was a dog's purpose. And I said, well, and I just thought to myself, it's so sad because I mean that dog, any dog, their purpose is not for us. It's not to make us happy. It's not to bring our lives meaning. They're not living for us. Of course, that we have a particular relationship with dogs because we've domesticated them, and now they're almost to the point where they could not survive they could not survive outside of the domesticated situation, and so we've kind of got, and they see us as pack leaders, and we often abuse that, but they're viewed as property by society. And yet we have fetishized them and we think they're family members, but society still views them as property. And we can, people, when they get tired of a dog, they'll take that dog to a shelter and drop them off, and they're often killed. And they're completely healthy, and they're killed by the millions every year. They languish in shelters. And so it's very, very important for us as abolitionist vegans. We advocate that we should adopt and foster refugees of domestication, like dogs, cats, and rabbits, and whoever else is left in shelters, or
Absolutely.
yeah. So,
This
but
is the situation that we
mm,
created.
that's
So
right. We've created it,
we
and
need to step up and take responsibility.
that's right. And of course, and we encourage anybody who runs a shelter or does rescue dogs and cats, that they become vegan and recognize that dogs and cats they're just one of many species who all love life and do not want to die. So anybody who is actually involved in shelter work should consider going vegan, and also if ever they have any events to serve plant-based foods. And if we can break through this moral compartmentalization, and those of us who have dogs and cats living with us at present, any of the viewers who have dogs and cats living with you, just consider that how much you care about them, and how They all have individual personalities, and it's the same for all these animals that we have on our plates and whom are wearing their skins and their on our backs, etc. They're all just like that little dog or cat whom we've given a name, whom we consider a family member, and whom we cry buckets over when they die. People are devastated when, you read about it all the time. People are devastated when the dog or cat whom they live with has died, and that's because we've seen their sentience right up front and personal, and we just have to apply. We just have to have the neuroplasticity to realize, bring in this new information that they are, exactly the same as the non-human animals that we're eating, wearing, and using. So, but a dog's purpose as a film is, I just sort of thought, and also in the synopsis, they actually referred to the dog as it, even though it was about the dog, really. It's amazing. So we couldn't even get the pronoun right in this film, film about a dog and how important this dog was to his family. So it just shows how, confused we are and how indoctrinated we are that we do things like this. We can't even present an issue like that in sort of in use the correct pronouns. But anyway, yeah. So, is there anything else that you might like to say, Elena? And we might sort of be wrapping it up soon. But if Keith would like to join us, do you have anything to? Keith's on the side here, so Elena will probably have to ask him. He's out of view.
No, I'm sure he can hear. He's just he's been commenting and.
Oh, he has. I'm sure he has stuff to say. I mean, would you like to say anything else, and we could bring Keith on? And if anybody has any comments, that any sort of questions they might like us to address in the next time that we get together, that would be great. You can leave any comments you have, and try and keep it civil. Leave comments and questions that you might like us to talk about in a next discussion about that. That'd be great. So feel free to do that.
Well, and, I just wanted to say that abolitionist veganism and abolitionist vegan advocacy is the way to go, is the way to be. I for a better part of 7 or 8 years before I discovered abolitionist approach, we went to all kinds of protests. We did all kinds of leafleting and, giving information to people who are not really looking for it. So that didn't do anything, really. I mean, we were burnt out. We were not happy with what we were doing, and never actually realizing that there is only one key and one key only to this whole thing. And it's talking about veganism and educating people so that they will understand about justice. It's not about the
Hang on a sec. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, we just suddenly dropped out, and we just suddenly dropped out, and now we're back on.
Oh boy.
So anyway, sorry. Please continue. I don't know what happened there.
Well, that was about it. That just promote veganism, educate veganism. It's not about a diet. It's about the victims, and it's about recognizing the victims, and again, being vegan, living vegan. And living vegan means not only not eating animal products, it's not wearing them. It's not using products that have been tested on animals. It's about ridding your home of all animal products. It's about peace and nonviolence. Once you go vegan, your whole life changes. Your perspective on life
Well,
completely changes.
hold on, Elena. I think that we may not be online. Can I ask anybody in the audience, in the viewer, anybody who's viewing this, if they could just leave a message saying if they can still see Elena and I? Can you just have a look in the comment section, or Keith? Oh, okay. Can anybody? Can
Yes,
anybody? Oh, they can see. Okay, so people can see we're still going. Oh, okay. It was just Dee Dee was saying that there wasn't anything. I'm so sorry to keep interrupting you, Elena.
no, that's it. I was, if I'm not interrupted, I could go on forever. So
No,
it's
no,
fine.
it's fine. No, please, I'm sorry. Please continue. You were. I meant to. Yeah. Anyway, if you can just continue, that'd be great. Or if you wanted to let Keith pop on, I don't know. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I've interrupted you twice now.
Oh, no
With
problem.
the
Don't
technical
worry.
stuff.
Well, let's ask him.
Oh, okay. Oh, but please, like if there's anything else you want to say, I just thought we'd gone off, and I thought actually we completely dropped out of the live stream, but you're there. So if there's anything else you want to say, if there's any, thing else at all, just say it. And otherwise, I'll let, we'll pop Keith on.
I think Keith is here, and
Okay.
here he is.
All right.
So
Okay,
I'm
great.
just going to give it
Thank you so much, Elena. And I'll just drop you out of the thing, and I'll chat while you're exchanging headphones and
It's been a pleasure,
mic.
Trish. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, Elena. Hi, Keith. So Keith's just putting on his earbuds and mic, and so sorry about that. I thought that we'd just suddenly completely dropped off, and that was the end of the broadcast, but it wasn't the case, so that's good. So really, Elena and Keith are probably a bit of a lone voice in South Florida, but they're doing great work, and I do invite you to check out Keith's blog. It's called Turbulence of Dreaming. And while we're just to remind you that on next, it's not this Friday. We're not going to be doing something this Friday because we had Elena here today. She's not able to join us on Friday. On the 30th of June, I think it's the 30th. That's a Friday. Anyway, I'll post a live notifications you can click on. We're going to have the next one Friday week is going to be Angel Flynn from Gentle World, and Angel will have some really. She's very, very informative and a far better speaker than myself on veganism. So you'll probably get some really great insight and a different a sort of a rich explanation about what they do at Gentle World. And she writes the most amazing blogs, abolitionist vegan blogs. She's an abolitionist, and she doesn't promote happy animal slavery. She doesn't fetishize any species over other species, or she doesn't think that any form of animal use is worse than another. And that's the abolitionist thing. We promote that all all species are equally morally important, and
Mm-hmm.
human and non-human. We're all members of the moral community. So now I'm going to see if Keith is there, and there's Keith. So I'll just drop him into this broadcast, and then we'll probably talk for another 10 or so minutes. Hi, Keith.
Hey, Trish, how are you? I didn't know you were here.
No, I didn't know you were here either, Keith. I could hear you in the corner there. So we were just talking, Elena and I, about. She was just saying, talking about her, how she became vegan, and then talked a little bit about what it was like to be a lone voice in some ways in South Florida with your vegan education group.
Sure.
You're the only. Was there anything you wanted to comment about on on the different topics we talked about, the quirkers or the or the barley and dog killing situation, or anything like that, or anything that you've just come up with, during the last 5 days since we talked?
The last 5 days. Well, first I want to wave and say hi to all the trolls in the room. I'm so glad that you're here, because you offer a perspective that we just never hear. That animals are tasty, and that meat is good, and all that sort of stuff. So your points for originality are very low. Your points for persistence would be high if you continue on. But I wanted to say that. When you make jokes about veganism, here's what you're doing. You're making a joke about someone's commitment to live vegan. It's more than just being insensitive to what somebody does. It's really being insensitive to who that person is and what their core values are. So, if our core values are that we believe in nonviolence, that we believe that innocent, vulnerable individuals shouldn't be hurt, shouldn't be killed, shouldn't be sexually violated, shouldn't be confined against their will, enslaved, exploited, executed. If that's our core value, then what you're coming and attacking is that. So, I always question why people would take that position, other than just being completely defensive, because it points out some moral inconsistencies that those people have. If you believe it's wrong to hurt somebody and kill somebody just because it feels good, then you don't do it, and you don't joke about other people who take a stand against that. If our stand was against rape, then no one would come in and go, "Oh, rape feels really good, and that's the only way that I can get my sexual gratification. So of course I'm going to rape." Ha ha! You don't do that. So for those who are trolling and doing it, when you go to sleep tonight, before you drift off, before you take that last conscious thought and you start to dream, think about what you're doing, and think about the idea that every argument that you make against veganism is an argument in favor of exploitation, in favor of slavery, in favor of bullying, theft, mutilation, and needless death. So that's what you want to do. You can do it. I saw the same people making anti-feminist comments and so forth. So this is not me feeding the trolls. It's just me feeding some reality to the trolls, because it's really kind of uncalled for.
Yeah, I often sort of think of it this way, that if people, when trolling happens, I often think, well, at least those people have, even if it's even if they haven't thought through it, at least they have some kind of a feeling about it, which is better than indifference. So in some ways, I sort of find,
sure.
And I've known of people who have been incredibly reactive when they first heard about veganism, and then later on, became quite strong advocates. It's sort of like,
That was me.
Yeah, that's right. It can happen. Hey, it's like when you're young, you resisted, and it's like, and then something happens and it just kind of breaks through. I mean, that's happened to you, hasn't it, Keith?
Yeah,
so
I was, before I was vegan, before I understood that what we're really dealing with here is a fundamental issue of justice versus injustice, I thought the whole thing was a joke. I would have worn a T-shirt that said "People eating tasty animals." I would have done that because I thought it was funny. But I wouldn't wear a joke that says, or a T-shirt that says, "People raping small children," because it's really not funny. So when you're advocating that somebody kill somebody for you to have some kind of pleasure, it's wrong. So I was that person. I was not. My friend Colin, who I think is in the room tonight, Colin Wright. He pointed out to me that I wasn't just non-vegan; I was anti-vegan. I used to, look at vegans and tell them that, oh, you're not eating right, and suddenly I had a nutrition degree that was, out of thin air, and I would make all sorts of comments that were inflammatory and defamatory. So it was, eventually I had to take a bite of that sandwich and say, I've been doing this, and how wrong it is, and make some amends. And I've been thinking, asked what's been on my mind the last few days. I wonder, having grown up eating animal products for 36 years, thinking that there was nothing wrong with it, being having antithetical ideas about this. What was it that finally pushed me to live vegan? And I think part of it was that for about, I was 36, 20. So for about 10 years, I was in a process of sort of growth and introspection, and I was in the habit of looking at examining my morals and taking moral inventories. And when I saw that what I was engaging in while consuming animal products was against my morals, I believe in peace, I believe in nonviolence, I believe that individuals should have the right to live their lives autonomously without somebody interfering. And then I realized I was engaging in exactly the opposite every single time I made the choice to consume animals. I realized I was living outside my moral boundaries, and I didn't feel good about that. So I had to step back inside of it and say, I don't do this, but I'm doing this. So I need to stop doing this. And that was it. That was what, that's all it took. It just took enough information to look and say, this is slavery. I don't do slavery, but I'm doing slavery. So I need to stop doing that. Mm-hmm. And then, part of that process, what comes after the moral inventory really is a process of making amends to myself and to the world. And so my amends process is in changing my behavior and living differently, living an ethical life, trying to live as morally consistent as I can. And so that's what I do now. And my amends to all of the animals that I paid somebody else to kill for me is that I'm not doing it going forward. And I haven't done it since 2004. And it's just not going to happen again. So I guess that's what's been on my mind a bit.
It's a real gift, isn't it? The, sort of, I sometimes I feel sad when I see people who can be so resistant to the idea of being vegan, when I know what incredibly, how much it's transformed my life, and it's how great I feel, but also I'm kind of a bit horrified that I was so easily led into this indoctrination to believe such a thing about such a large group of individuals. It sort of horrifies me that I was taken in by that indoctrination and that it took me so long to snap out of it, like wandering around in a species haze and seeing these animals, seeing these other sentient beings as just there for us for whatever purpose. I mean, that's kind of horrifying, and it's sort of, I kind of sort of, I always thought of myself as a fairly sort of a thoughtful person, and then I look back and I think, wow, well, I just went along with that, even though underneath it all, I knew there was something wrong with what I was doing. I mean, you see it even just sometimes when I mention I'm vegan to someone, people know why, they kind of know why you're vegan. They kind of know, and here I was sort of, even though I had that little voice in the background saying, there's something wrong with this, I just ignored it and went along with the herd, that herd mentality. It's kind of scary. Yeah,
it is. And we hear these statistics about billions of land animals being killed every year, and upwards in the trillions when we count fish. And fish are so devalued as that they're not even counted in terms of how many are caught and killed. They're just counted by pounds. So if your entire life was brought down to what you weighed in pounds and what you're worth by the pound, then you've really been commodified in a way that's just disgusting, really. But I don't know what's, there's the statistic is that 6 million land animals are slaughtered in the United States alone every hour, every 60 minutes. The equivalent of the lives lost in the human Holocaust is lost to animal agriculture. Every 60 minutes, 6 million. Now that statistic really means nothing to me because I have no idea what 6 million of anything looks like, 10 billion of anything looks like. Our group is a nonprofit organization. We accept donations. If anybody wants to give me 6 million of something or 10 billion, I will gladly learn what they look like and I will count them and I will use them for vegan education. But I don't know what those numbers really represent, but I do know what one looks like. And I know that when I look into the eyes of one sentient being, one non-human animal who wants to live and doesn't want to die just to become somebody's steak or somebody's container of milk or somebody's jacket, That's what makes a difference. And that's what it has to come down to for me. The
Mm.
idea that one is too many and 10 billion and 1 trillion are way too much.
Mm.
So, if I wouldn't, all of us, everybody in this room, everybody who's listening, trolls and included, if someone were beating a pig in front of you with a baseball bat, you would stop them. You wouldn't run to get a barbecue grill going, and you wouldn't run to get an apron, and you wouldn't run to get some tongs and a butcher knife. You would stop them from beating that individual to death.
Mm.
You would do the same thing with a dog or a chicken or a cow, any other sentient being. But we learn to pretend that stuff is unimportant. We learn to pretend that it's okay and that it's acceptable, and we turn and look the other way. Our instincts as humans is to caretake and to nurture, not to kill and confine and harm. That's we're living antithetical to our own nature when we're doing those things. And that's a sacrifice we make. The animals are not sacrificing themselves. We're sacrificing our own morals. We're sacrificing our own values to live a different way, just so that we can get 5 minutes of pleasure at a meal. It doesn't make sense.
Unless that saying, unless we see justice and nonviolence as extreme, veganism is not extreme, and that's the thing. It's like it's not. It's something to be valued, and I hope that the viewers will see that nonviolence and justice is not exclusive. It really isn't. We can pretend all we like that it's okay to do this, that it's okay to breed animals into existence by the billions and then take their children and murder their children and reproductively manipulate them. And as feminists, we should think about this, that, all these industries manipulate the reproductive systems of non-human animals, of mothers, and they take their children away from their mothers, and they murdered the children and then eventually murder the mothers, and they enslave the female children. And this is also a feminist issue, so we need to really think about that. And let's, and it can only enrich all of our lives. And there's so much hanging on it. So many problems in the world are related to the fact that we're not vegan, and the source of and how can it not, when we're exploiting the most vulnerable group, a group that has nobody to speak to for them except we sometimes very, very flawed humans. How can if we ignore the most vulnerable group, we're going to ignore other vulnerable groups. These attitudes and behaviors never stay in a vacuum. They never stay isolated. They always, it broadens the attitudes, and we're doing it to humans. So, yeah, it's,
and we've been doing it to humans for a very long time. And, the connection, and I don't, it's always difficult to make the following, connections, because people get up in arms about it. But, I'll just preface what I'm about to say by saying that I come from a Jewish family. My great aunt was an Auschwitz survivor. She tunneled out from under dead bodies to escape that torture center. So, I have a little bit of credibility in this area, and so not to make the point about to make an equation directly about the human Holocaust and what is an animal Holocaust, an ongoing daily Holocaust, but what you said is true, that what we do to the most vulnerable, we then find ways to do to the less vulnerable. The most vulnerable beings on the planet are non-human animals. They have no voice. They have no rights at this time. They have no ability to call for help. Then you have human children, and then you have older adults. And so that's how the hierarchy is of vulnerability. But, it's not coincidental that when the Nazis were designing what were essentially slaughterhouses in their death camps, that they used slaughterhouses. They used Chicago slaughterhouses as models for how to most efficiently process the people that they were going to kill. That was their model. It's well documented. This is what they used. So they looked at, well, how do you do it to the animals? Oh, okay, that's how you do it to the animals. Well, let's retrofit it a little bit and start doing it to humans. Let's figure out how that works. And the death toll there was we always hear the number 6 million, but it was well over 6 million. 6 million was just, the Jewish population that they decimated. Then you had people of color, you had Jehovah's Witnesses, you had gypsies, there were there's lots more death that happened there. But that's what they did. They said, we need a way to do this. Where are we doing it most efficiently? Oh, we're doing it with animals. Great. Let's just use that. So, these are all oppression is connected, and all oppression feeds on its, on all other forms of oppression. If that's what a person wants to be involved in, then I guess that's the choice they make. I can't make that choice anymore. You can't make that choice. And none of the people I know who live vegan can make that choice. Once you know these things, as someone in the room said, you can't unknow it. And someone brought up a comment a few minutes ago about it's not exploitation to kill for your sustenance or to feed your family. I think that was the comment. I haven't had anybody killed for me because most people aren't just going out and killing the animals themselves. I haven't had anybody kill anyone for me in what is it going to be 13 years. I'm in perfect health. I play tennis like a madman. What do I need for someone to die from my sustenance? I don't. We were eating plants before we were eating animals. We were cowering in caves and eating plants to survive. It's not a viable argument, not a viable excuse. It's a rationalization, a justification, unfortunately. And I used to believe it too. I bought into that whole thing. Well, I need meat to survive. If I needed meat to survive, I'd be dead right now. If the millions of vegans living today in this country and the millions around the world needed animal products to survive or to thrive, they'd all be dead. It doesn't take long to learn that.
Exactly, and plant protein, animals get their protein from plants, and we're just sort of, it's like just putting aside, it's sort of we don't, the protein there's plenty of protein in plants. In fact, vegans get 75% more protein than they need every day, and it's all in plants. We don't need animal products to survive, and we don't need dairy. Dairy, in fact, is it actually leaches calcium from our bones. It's actually got neurotoxins in it and all sorts of things. It's actually got this growth hormone in it that's responsible for different cancers. And eggs are eating one egg a day is like smoking 5 cigarettes. That's what these are facts.
What if you smoke 2 cigarettes and eat half an egg? I just want to say, just to dovetail into what I said, I can't see the comments in the room. I can only see portions of them. So there's the gentleman who brought up, that exploitation is not that if you're doing this to feed your family. I'm not trying in any way to sort of denigrate what he's saying. I don't know his full comment. I'm just saying that if we look beyond what we've been taught, we find that there are other ways to do these things. It's the same argument that, I have to wear leather because it's all I have to stay warm. Actually, I could find something else and not cause somebody there to lose their life. That's what I'm saying. So, I hope it didn't come off in a different way because I can't see his entire comment.
Yeah, it's I can't see any comments, to be honest. Probably good because it sounds like there's a little bit of trolling going on. But anyway, we honestly, we can get, if anybody's read the China study, that was the largest nutrition study ever undertaken to date, I think. And that was the result of that proved that, there are diseases that weren't even known to the many people that were covered in that study living in China, and they were eating a plant-based diet. They didn't have any of the heart disease or any of that we have today. And it's expected that 1 in 3 people in the United States are going to have diabetes at some point. And this is caused directly by the consumption of animal products. And in fact, it's actually the fat in animal flesh and the animal fats that are actually contributing greatly to diabetes. It's not what the diabetes industry likes to promote, which is sugar and carbohydrates. It's not that at all. In fact, it's actually the animal fats and actual animal flesh that is contributing to it, and yet the diabetes industry actually promotes animal products. And when you look at who are the sponsors of many of these large groups like the Diabetes Association and other ones, and the Cancer Council, if you watch What the Health, the film, you find that these different industries are actually, the sponsors of them is the animal agriculture, businesses that sell animal products. So I'll actually put an image of the various sponsors of these large, like the Cancer Council and the Diabetes Association, and people will see how many, and Big Pharma actually also sponsor these various sort of groups. So this is
Follow
where
the money.
this is where What the Health is quite an informative, in that it shows the links between the Big Pharma and the diabetes and cancer industry, and how they've lost their way in relation to, they've worked out that it's a very profitable thing, including the pink, all these pink campaigns for the breast cancer. That's a huge industry now, and they've actually got pink containers of animal products. These are dairy is a big contributor to breast cancer. Yeah. That's been scientifically proven, and that's why I encourage people to check out What the Health, because the science is there. This isn't something that we're pulling out of the air. Science is there. If you look at nutritionfacts.org, which is about the science-backed plant-based diets, the human studies about a plant-based diet, and also about animal products, the science is there that animal products are definitely a major cause of all the different diseases that we have in the West: diabetes, heart disease, and all the other diseases, Parkinson's. I mean, dairy is related to not only Parkinson's disease, but also, diabetes type 1. They think that feeding dairy to some children actually, stimulates diabetes type 1. So, I mean, I invite people to watch that movie, that film, What the Health, and see how, and you'll really be quite shocked at some of the information in that film. Is there anything else that you wanted to say, Keith? Because it's getting on it's actually sort of, we've been speaking for a while now.
Are we on overtime?
I think, well, there is no overtime really, but I mean, we don't want to overwhelm people by just going on and on. So, but if you have anything that, else you might want to say, and then we'll wrap it up, I think.
Well, I just want to encourage people to do the thing that is morally best. And the thing that's morally best is this: if you believe that it's wrong to hurt and kill others for no justifiable reason, then you stop doing it. And when you understand, because it doesn't take long to figure this out, when you understand that we don't need to kill animals for food, we don't need to kill them for clothing, we don't need to kill them for anything that keeps us alive, or we don't need to kill them for our own pleasure, for our own conveniences, for our customs, for our traditions. When we realize that these are unnecessary, then we agree with the premise of the first statement, which is that it's wrong to kill for no good reason. So when we realize that, then we stop doing it. And to do that means to live vegan. It means to not use animals for any reason. And I've seen people commenting in the room, what about this? What about that? What about that? Those are great questions. Explore them and find that at the end of your exploration, there's some other way to do these things. There's always a way to do this that is nonviolent. There's always a way to get your needs met that don't involve someone else dying.
Yes.
Human health is, there's wonderful ancillary benefits to living vegan and to eating a plant-based diet, and the two of those are not the same thing, as I'm sure you pointed out. those ancillary benefits are great, but it's just like we would never tell a spousal abuser that the best reason you should stop abusing your spouse is that your hand will feel better because you're not punching that person in the face, and your health insurance costs will be lower because you're not making trips to the ER every week. You say it's wrong to beat your spouse. It's morally unjustified to punch this person in the face. Stop doing it. So I encourage people to just look at their morals, look at the information, and see whether your morals and your behaviors match up together. If they don't, then come into congruence. And to do that, in many cases, for most people, and especially for me, meant living vegan. Trish you have wonderful websites that are great resources. Howtogovegan.org is a phenomenal resource. I'm on it all the time. Vegan Trove, which is one of your other websites, .com, is an excellent resource. I hope you'll put these in the in the information section. Our group, South Florida Vegan Education Group, you can find us on Facebook, or you can look on veganeducationgroup.com. You can read the blog, just put blog dot in front of veganeducationgroup.com. Be Fair, Be Vegan is a wonderful site. And there's a lot of not so wonderful sites that make a kind of a mess of all these ideas.
It's hard breaking through that.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, it's hard breaking through the all the misinformation and disinformation out there, isn't it? And all the promotion of happy animal slavery. It's very hard to break through it. So that's why it's so important for us to be able to have, and we're so grateful for this opportunity to be able to talk about this in hopefully a morally consistent way, because there is so much that is so confused, morally confused, that is presented, that is called veganism, but it has little to do with veganism. Anything that is promoting anything speciesist like happy animal products and humane farming and single issue campaigns that fetishize animals or say that one form of animal use is worse than another. Anything that's doing that is speciesist, and it's not veganism. People can call it what they want, but it's not veganism. So, that's something that we're trying to break through, and we invite anybody to leave, comments in the comments section, like questions, and some sincere questions, not things that are sort of just meant to be contentious and trying to be clever, but sincere questions. And we'd be more than happy to respond to that next time, we're together. And so, please do that. So, Keith, you might.
And also, if I can say one more thing, I encourage, I'm available on Facebook or through our website. You can reach me by email at veganeducation@outlook.com. And I'm willing to, take all questions and comments and talk about them. I love having discussions with people. I learn something new all the time in every conversation I have. I'm not here to, pontificate and say that I know everything, but I may have information other people don't have. They may have information I don't have. So I'm certainly open and willing and eager to talk about those things, as is Elena.
It's an ongoing thing, isn't it, Keith?
Absolutely. And I'd love to be able to have those conversations go further, even with the people who I think are trolling. Maybe they're not. Maybe they have serious questions. Let's talk. Let's talk, Booby. Let's talk. Come and talk to me. Send me a private message. Send me a message at South Florida Vegan Education Group. Whatever you want to do. We'll talk. We'll have a good time. We'll chat. We'll have tea.
We'll talk and we'll have a cup of coffee.
We'll have coffee. Whatever.
So, and the same with me. People are welcome to, and there's no judgment in any of this. We're not sitting back and feeling self-righteous because we're vegan or whatever. We were all non-vegan at one point, unless we were born into a family that was vegan. Keith and I were both. I've been non-vegan longer than a lot of people I know, and so I'm not in any position, nor even if I was vegan from birth. We're not judging anybody. We're really just trying to actually invite you to open your mind to the possibility that what we're doing and what our species has been doing for thousands and thousands and thousands of years is morally problematic, and it's also incredibly violent. And if we really want to address violence in our life, if we really, really want a non-violent planet, then we really, becoming vegan is a first step to that. That's all really, in a way, we're saying. It's a really simple message. There's nothing complicated about it, really. But the indoctrination is something that is so heavy, we have to keep repeating this message in a way to break through that. So that's really kind of what we're doing in a way, isn't it, Keith? Hopefully, anyway.
It is, and I'll tell you, for the first 10 years of living vegan, my mom didn't cook a single meal for me because she had no idea what to make. She said, "I don't know what to make for you." I said, "Leave dead animals out of the recipe. That's all. No milk, no eggs, no cheese, no other dairy products, no honey, nothing that either was or came squirting out of an animal." That was as simple as that. So her the best she could do is, we could meet at a place with a salad bar whenever we ate. And then one day, 10 years later, and this is irrespective of anything I said to her, and I didn't badger my mom, or it's kind of a speciesist term, but I didn't get on my mom about that she needed to live vegan. One day she looked at her dog, the dog that she lives with, a rescue, and she said, "I wouldn't eat you under any circumstances." And then she thought, "What am I doing?" And in that moment, well, not in that moment, but shortly thereafter, she called me and she asked me a couple of questions. I gave her some insights about some things. And she's been vegan ever since. It's like 2.5 years, or maybe it'll be 3 years. But my mom, at age 69, she's going to kill me for saying how old she is, but at age 69, she made the ethical connection, the moral connection that if I'm not going to kill you, why am I paying people to kill somebody else? And she stopped doing it that day. And then she started sending us food porn on our phones. She's like, "Look at the vegan meal I made. I veganized this. I'm veganizing that." She's all over Facebook. Like, settle down, Mom. But she finally cooked. Yeah, she finally cooked meals for me again. So I grew up in that family where we thought this is just what you do. It's how you do it. They die because we pay for it. And when we stop, I don't know. I feel better about it. And like you said, this isn't about a moral superiority situation. One of my Facebook friends said it the best, I think. She said, I'm trying to remember who it is. I think Michelle McCowan. She said, "I'm not vegan because I think I'm superior to anyone. I'm vegan because I don't think I'm superior to anyone." And that boils it down to, very elegantly and eloquently.
But vegans, I was just saying that yesterday that, vegan, I don't see myself, some people like to say, "Oh, vegans are all, vegans are awesome and they're this and that." I mean, veganism as UV Archives has said, is the minimum standard of decency. It's really just the least we can be, So yeah, we don't think we're awesome or any of this sort of thing, and some vegans like to promote that thing, but that's not what it's about. It's the least we can be.
So, yeah, I don't cheerlead about being vegan. I'm not, if I'm awesome, it's for some other reasons that I'm not aware of, but that doesn't make me awesome. It doesn't make me superhuman. All I do is not pay people to kill other individuals. That's pretty simple. And I don't know why that would be something that we have to, like an ethic to live up to. That should come with who we are.
Yes,
and I think as babies, it probably does, but then we learn a different way and we put all that aside and we go into willful ignorance and denial. And then when we come back out of it, there's some cognitive dissonance. We go, what? No, that can't possibly be. Wait, there's 900 reasons why we got to keep doing this. And as you look at those reasons, they don't hold up.
No, yeah, exactly. There's many reasons people like to reach for, but really they can all be debunked and discounted very, very easily. And that's something that, we tend to have to do a lot, is because people have that resistance. But then one day, even if they may not, even some of the most, as you've had that experience, the most almost anti-vegan, sometimes it can just click. There's a lot of people who are animal actually were farmers in animal agriculture who snapped out of it, didn't they? There's been some amazing stories of that. But anyway, Keith, I guess we probably should wrap this up. And I want to thank you, Sue and Elena, so much because I know you were very, very busy. And I also wanted to thank Steve Grumbine again and Real Progressives for giving us this forum to be able to discuss this very, very important issue, one of the greatest social justice movements of this century. And it's it's a privilege to be able to talk about it. I hope that we do it justice. We do our best. And I want to thank everybody for tuning into this. And I hope that you'll join us when we talk to Angel Flynn from Gentle World who's a wonderful speaker on about veganism, and that will be, I think, on not this Friday, but the next Friday. So please join us then. So
am I joining? Will I be there also for Angel?
I think it's either you or Elena, because I don't think we can fit any more than 3 people in this broadcast. If we can fit any more than 3 people in this broadcast, definitely.
Okay, Elena,
I think you might have to flip coins for it.
Can I bring Elena back for just to come and wave goodbye?
Sure.
I don't know if
Absolutely.
she can hear us.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
And she's in another room.
But, I'm sorry. Yes, I have to bring Elena back. I didn't think I can see there in the lobby.
No, she's not there. I'm hoping she's listening in another room. And
anyway, thanks so much, everybody, for joining, and we hope you'll join us next time. And if you're not vegan, please consider going vegan, and we'll leave some resources that you can click on to find out more. So thanks so much again, and Elena's coming on.
Hey, look who's here.
Okay. Bye, Elena. Thanks for coming on.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, then. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for having us. And thank you, all the trolls.
Okay, bye, everyone. Thanks so much. Bye for now.